Okay, good morning, everyone. It is 10 o'clock on April 7th, 2022, and today is our 39th Eric Hilton Distinguished Chair Alumni Lecture Series, and we are so proud and pleased that all of you could join us here in person. And as I said, there's a $500 bill somewhere under here in the front row, so maybe people will come in and sit there or not, I don't know. So welcome everybody. My name is Richard Weil, and I am very fortunate to be the current chair of Eric's Club. First of all, Dean Reynolds, there he is. Dr. Back is in the back.
I'm back.
Dr. Dawson is in here too. There she is. Dr. Rappole. Dr. Bowen. And distinguished members of Eric's Club, I greet you. Faculty, students, and guests. Again, my name is Richard Weil. I am so privileged to be here with 24 of my colleagues, maybe 25. There's a big group of Eric's Club members here today. And we are all positioned here in the front. And if I could, please, I know maybe this is a pain because y'all just got seated. Would you all please stand to be recognized? Ladies and gentlemen, if you would please welcome our Eric's Club members. Thank you. This is a tribute to our students. We'll talk a little bit about what Eric's Club is all about here in a few minutes. But first, I would like to ask Dean Reynolds, if you would please come forward and make a few remarks, and we'll get our program started this day. So if you please welcome Dean Reynolds. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everybody. How we doing? Great. I like everybody all dressed up. Everybody looks good. This is fantastic. So today is going to be a fantastic speaker. And why do I know that? Because when we had breakfast this morning, I said, Jeff, I heard this is going to be the best Eric's Club speaker ever. And he, without missing a beat, he said, it'll be the best one today. That was really good. So a couple quick things, just to answer some questions. The Eric's Club, Eric's Club Center for Student Success will be opening in August. It's for the students. It's going to be unlike any student center you've ever seen. It's going to be pretty fantastic. So that's exciting. And the other question I've been getting a lot is, why aren't the two towers connected? The new tower that we're building, well, we're still building it. So there will be a sky bridge on every floor. It's just not open yet. So be patient with us, because if you have to build a sky bridge, what do you have to do to the existing tower? Yeah, you got to finish it. You got to cut a hole in every floor. So if you cut a hole in every floor, then you have a room out of service. So we've been kind of waiting on that. So I will tell you that occupancy in the hotel last month was 80%. So think about during the pandemic, we were at 5%. We had some extended stay guests. We're not an extended stay hotel, but we had parents saying, I don't want my child living in the dorm. Can we book a room for the rest of the semester? Yes, you can. We were quick about that. So today's going to be great. Please take the opportunity to meet Eric's Club. This is a great group of people. The fact that so many people came in, especially, and the mute button. So many people came from out of town to be here. We're just very blessed. We're very gifted to have this. And talk about Eric's Club, because people don't really know what it is. This is kind of our elite alumni group, which is pretty exciting. We're just so fortunate to have it. So with that, who's working gourmet night of the students? Excellent. Who's ever been to gourmet night of the students? 2. Okay. So we're going to have a gourmet night. That's our big deal. It's not a fundraiser. It's a celebration of our students, with most of the students never having attended, which is going to be very different. Some of our students didn't get to go to senior prom, so you've never really even been to a big event. So this is going to be epic. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be, get it, magical. There's that lingering laugh that's like 5 seconds late. Okay. It's going to be fantastic. So for Eric's Club, we're all going to be there Saturday night, yes? Okay. I got some nods, that's good. Anyway, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be nice just to be back. Think about it, our last gourmet night was 2019. Last night we had it, or last year we had it, it was virtual. so I kind of count, but it's going to be pretty special. So we're excited. But today is the big day of the week because of our speaker. So with that, thank you, and go Cougs!
So everybody should hopefully have received one of these. Did you all get one of these? That is our introduction really for Eric's Club. So what is Eric's Club? Well, you can read it in your program, but I'm going to briefly talk a little bit about it. In 1999, Dr. Rapole, who's in the front row, established Eric's Club. And Dr. Rapole is the former Eric Hilton Distinguished Chair and Professor Emeritus, as well as a board member emeritus of Eric's Club. So Dr. Rapole, we're always delighted to have you. Let's hear it for Dr. Clinton Rapole. Thank you. So you'll notice in along my hall here, we have
Recording in progress.
Yes. We have 6 distinguished portraits in the back, and in the middle back there is Dr. Rapole. Also, Dr. Bowen is in the back on the your far left, my far right. We are so proud to have Eric's Club be part of this college, and again, with all of our wonderful Eric's Club members. To become a member of Eric's Club, you must have graduated from Hilton College and have been out of school for a minimum of 20 years. Some of us resemble that remark. In fact, some of us have been out more than 20 years times 2, and then some. I'm a proud 1978 graduate of the Hilton College. And so all of our members must have been an owner, an officer, or executive in the hospitality industry or an allied field. Eric's Club members are some of the most distinguished alums of the Hilton College and our industry. No problem. We adapt. Later this morning at 11:30, we'll be introducing our meet and greet, which will be upstairs in Astoria. As students, if you don't take that opportunity, to come meet this wonderful group, to network, it's a resource. It's beyond your tuition. It's something that you should absolutely take advantage of today, because you will not ever have an opportunity, really, to have access to 25 people with the experiences they have. So I hope you will take the time to be there later this morning. So, as with our Eric's Club tradition, our most previous Eric's Club speaker, good morning, Mr. Paday, who spoke to us last fall. Mike is a 1989 graduate of our college, and he showcased his career and made a fabulous presentation. So I would at this time like to introduce Mr. Mike Paday to further our presentation this morning. If you please welcome Mr. Paday.
Thank you all. Good morning. Good morning. How are we doing? Great. I feel like we're at a comedy club. I'm warming it up for you, Jeff. So thank you all for being here. Thank you all on Zoom. Before Jeff gets up here and gets interrupted, make sure you stay on mute. Okay, we will adapt, but make sure you do stay on mute. Steve Goodman will be happy to know that I did script myself today. I do have 6 minutes though, so we're not supposed to start till 10:15, right, Richard? Can I use all 6?
I'm 1 minute ahead. So
You're 1 minute ahead? I don't need all 6, trust me. Anyway, I just wanted to thank all of you for coming. Thank you for the honor of introducing our speaker today. I'm not going to read verbatim inside of your program what Jeff is all about, but he's incredibly impressive. Obviously, as the president of Balsher Hep, actually I'm going to stop for a second. Can I tell you how excited I am about this right here? Can I tell you how excited I am about this? You see, this is why you need a script mic, because this is what I meant to say when I started. The Conrad N. Hilton College of Global Hospitality Leadership. It has been that way forever. And we are so excited to have that name change that makes us all feel, regardless of whether we are doing what I'm doing or doing what Charmaine is doing or what Ricky is doing, that it all fits under that title. So we're super excited about having the name change. Dean Reynolds, thanks for pushing that through. Those of us who were in the survey, I tell everyone this is exactly what I wrote. So I'm pretty much responsible for the name change. Anyway, that's right. There should be a little MPR right down there. So your speaker today is fantastic, right? He's going to one-up me. It's not even going to be close. But if you will look inside your program, you'll see not only the honored group that we have here today, but the year that they presented. And you should ask them about that experience and what they have done, because my conversation was about networking, and to what Richard said a moment ago, if you're not networking with this group, you are missing out. So please make sure you join us afterwards. So okay, now to Jeff, who has come to us from well, he may not have come to us directly from North Carolina. He probably came from somewhere else, knowing Jeff, but he joins us from North Carolina. He is the president of Boucher Hep, which he has grown this small company with just a handful of employees and the historic porcelain brand Boucher into a broad portfolio of international manufacturers. While others were cutting back in response to industry challenges, he started 4 new brands. And if you know anything about the industry recently, starting 4 new brands is not something that you just jump right into. So and congratulations to that. In his role as president of Boucher Hep, he works closely with an international board of directors to steer strategic vision, fiscal discipline, market penetration, and operational excellence. And as everyone will tell you, the higher up the ladder you go, the more things you do, the more pay attention you have to be. And so that is pretty impressive. Jeff is a recipient of a Certified Food Service Professional title, I'm not good with acronyms, CFSP credential from the North American Association of Food Equipment Manufacturers. That should be an acronym. Is one of the most important industry certifications you can get. He currently serves on the Dean's Advisory Board here at the Hilton College of Global Hospitality Leadership, and is a 1992 graduate of the Hilton College. And I recently ran into a few friends of him in the old Greek system who said, I know Jeff Heaney. Is that the same Jeff Heaney? If you need stories on Jeff Heaney, you just let me know. He was active here on campus and is so well-rounded. You also noticed, and I was most impressed with this, that during COVID he picked up the electric guitar thanks to a gift he got on his 50th birthday from his wife. And he also recently started skiing, hopefully not while playing guitar at the same time. Jeff and his wife live in Raleigh, and they have 2 high school age kids, so he's very happy to be here today. I think you'll learn in the first 5 minutes from Jeff, either here in this forum, later in his Q&A, or better yet in a private conversation, that the man is the genuine article. He will ask you about you first. He will ask you what you're about first. He'll ask you how your family's doing first. The last thing he wants to talk about is what he is doing. I've found that in my short time of getting to know Jeff. Quick to say yes, happy to help, and more than enthusiastic to support his Cougar alma mater. He was all in the basketball tournament the last couple of years. We had a few texts back and forth. Can we make a shot? No. Can we get a rebound? We're trying. What are we doing? So Jeff is an all-in Cougar. I recently got the chance to be the featured speaker here last year in this venue, an honor of a lifetime, but introducing Jeff is a highlight as well. If this were a dinner party, he is the main meal, Chateaubriand, all of that. Me, I'm just cheese whiz on a Triscuit. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, your featured speaker today, my friend and a great Hilton College Cougar, Jeff Heaney.
Can you hear me? Good. So I'm going to try to speak out front here. I really don't like standing behind the lectern. If I start wandering around, Mr. Wild's probably going to tell me to get back there. So, but I do tend to pace, so sorry for that. First off, I'm really excited to be here. When I walk back into this room, and I've been here a couple times every year, but it really feels a lot smaller today for some reason. But I'm really excited to be here. You know, I want to thank all of the students for being here, you know, taking your personal time to be here, to thank the alum, the Air Club's members, all the supporters, the faculty, so thank you very much. I was really surprised when I was approached to do this talk today. And, you know, for me, I still feel like I'm on my career journey. I still have a few more chapters left. And so I was really surprised that they approached me to talk with you. But, you know, I don't feel my growth is complete. You know, I'm still in the process of learning, growing. I read a lot of books, I read a lot of articles, listen to podcasts. You know, I work with several coaches, you know, because I'm trying to constantly learn and grow. And so this is just the first step in your career, your growth. And you'll have many more opportunities to continue to grow. So I've been working on this for a couple months, and I sat there and I said, I need to have a goal. What do I want to accomplish with this talk? And the first thing I came up with...
Sorry. Can you go behind the podium so that people in the Zoom can hear you?
I wasn't even pacing yet. All right. So,
there you go. Thank you.
So the first goal I wanted to accomplish was, I work in a part of the industry, the hospitality industry, that a lot of people just don't know about. So I wanted to help raise a little bit of awareness. Oftentimes when I'm talking to a neighbor or maybe the guy next to me on the airplane, they'll ask, what do you do? And they're always shocked to hear, did I go out? No. They're always shocked to hear that I get on airplanes and go visit hotels and restaurants to try to sell them china, glass, and silverware. They're like, you do what? Why don't they just run down to Macy's and do that? Go to Bed Bath & Beyond. No, we work in a very specialized part of the industry, but it's really a part of the industry I love. And so I hope to raise some awareness there. I will tell you there's a tremendous shortage of talent in our part of the industry. We need young talent to come into the equipment and supplies industry. Okay? And I will also say and admit we've done a terrible job with diversity in our side of the industry. And I'll say over the last 25 years we've done very well bringing more women into our side of the industry. So I would say we probably get a B or B plus there. Not perfect, but we have a lot of other opportunities to improve, and that's our job and responsibility to do so. But that's one of the reasons I'm so excited about the Hilton College and the University of Houston is a strong level of diversity part of the school. It makes me very proud of that. So we want to bring more and more people into our side of the industry. So that was goal number one. I want to bring some awareness to that. The other goal, you may find it hard to believe I'm standing up here in front of speaking to all these people, but I was a tremendously shy individual. I was very much an introvert. I was never one of the cool kids. I really, if you had assessed all the skills of someone who would get into sales or into leadership, I probably would have graded as mediocre at best. Okay? And what I really hope today, if you don't necessarily have that confidence or direction in life yet, is I want to give you a little bit of hope, a little bit of inspiration to say, hey, this guy was afraid to talk to people. He was very much a loner, and he made something, and he was able to overcome, yes? Well, he was able to overcome some of these challenges, and so I hope that's my goal number two, okay? So as I was preparing this, there was a common theme that came up during each of the chapters of my life, through my education, through many of the stops, and that is that I've been very fortunate in my life. And some people will make the statement that hard work makes good luck, and there might be some truth to that, but I also feel very fortunate and blessed with some of the great opportunities that I've been presented, people that have stepped up and helped me along my career. I feel very blessed with the family that I have. I do feel very fortunate, and I would also say that, I feel very fortunate as an alumni. Every time I come to the school, how impressed I am with the young students that we meet here. As a generation, you always hope that the next generation is a little bit better. And I would say that you guys are a lot better, really. And so as an alumni, I feel very proud to be associated with the students here at the Hilton College, because I think you guys represent us so well. And so I feel very fortunate about that. So a little bit about my background. I was born in Iran, so Tehran, Iran. My father enlisted in the Air Force when he was 17. He was trained in electronics, and so he was over there installing radio and television channels and part of the modernization program they had under the Shah. And I was born in Iran, and a lot of people say, well, you're born on a military base. There was no military base. We were there simply living in public. I was born in a public hospital. I really don't remember, I don't remember any bit of my experience there because we left when I was 2. But our house was always decorated with, Persian rugs and copper and brass fixtures and things like that. But from there we moved back to the States, and I proceeded to move a lot. I went to 9 different schools growing up, three different high schools. So I was always the new kid. Oftentimes we weren't near military bases, even though my father was in the Air Force. So I didn't have necessarily always kids with a common issue where they were commonly moving. I was the new kid, and I didn't know kids back from kindergarten. This was just sort of how I lived. I'm not going to go into all the gory details, but let's just say I came from lesser means. Okay, I was not exposed to a lot of the high life. I think going out for us was once or twice a year, maybe going to a Red Lobster. This was the big treat for the family, right? So I came from pretty simple means. As I said earlier, painfully shy, very much an introvert. My father left when he was 17 because of the circumstances he had. And so they raised us very similarly, where we were going to be independent. From a very young age, it was told, when you graduate high school, you're moving out, you're moving on. Now, both my parents did get college educations in their 30s, so they worked hard, and so college was very much discussed, right? But it wasn't assumed. And if we were going to go to school, we were going to pay for it. That was just how we were raised. And I have no complaints with that. I very much am happy with the independence that this created as part of who I am. So, if I could just talk a little bit more about who I am. Let me turn this guy on. Doesn't seem to be... Sorry. If I could, I'm going to, while he's playing with this, I just wanted to introduce you to my family, which he'll get up here in a minute. I want my 30 seconds back. So here's my wife. This is my wife. She is a lovely Greek lady. If you ever anybody seen the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding? Okay. We always like to joke that was based on our life, because we did meet 2 years before the movie, and it was just like the movie. I walked into a travel agency, and I have to admit I was very smitten with the young lady behind the counter. Nothing really happened for a long time, but I continued to use that travel agency very specifically. After about 6 months, I finally had the courage to ask her out, and by this time we had become very good friends. And quite honestly, it was the first time in my life that a relationship actually started because we were good friends. And so that was a really good foundation for us. Now, both of my wife, we have our faults, but I have to say we're really a perfect match. We're two totally different people. She's really outgoing, usually the life of the party, quite a jokester, really an awesome lady, and we just are really great for each other. And so, honey, if you're watching, I'm going to confess in front of all these wonderful people, I love you. Now, one of the things that attracted me to my wife, if you know anything about Greek families, and it's in many other cultures as well, but what really attracted me was their sense of family. And I really had to say that she has done an amazing job with our kids. I have 2 really awesome children. I know everyone thinks their kids are awesome, but mine really are. They really are fantastic. My daughter is 17. She is a junior in high school. We're just starting the process of exploring schools to see what she wants to do, where she wants to go. This is really nerve-wracking as a father, but she's really an awesome young lady. I was very careful in my decision-making. I didn't want to do anything to make her afraid or submissive, or I don't know the right words to use, but we wanted to raise a really strong, independent young lady, and we've been very successful in that. This young lady is very strong, strong-willed, driven. She's just really a joy to be around. She's big into softball. We exposed her to every sport, and somehow she just really loves softball, and she works out once, sometimes twice a day. She's really driven in this way. But really been a joy. I grew up with 2 brothers, so when I learned I was having a daughter, I was just on cloud nine. It was really, really awesome. My son, what a fantastic kid. He's 15. He knows how to push his mother's buttons. He is really, he's a piece of work, this kid. He, unlike me, is extremely outgoing. He's got a great sense of humor. He's very playful, but the four of us really make a really fun group. And as a family, yes, we have all the same challenges every other family have, but we also have a lot of fun together. And we are a very playful group together. So this is my family, just so you get to meet me a little bit. We, in the introduction, I talked about some of my interests, but just so you get to know who I am a little bit more as a person, I'm not just a guy in a suit up here. When people ask me what my hobby is, besides work and family, what do I like to do most? My big thing is live music. I love to go to concerts. I have a group of about 5 other friends, and we will travel the country to go see live music. So that's probably my biggest hobby. I'm not one of those guys that has a set golf date every Sunday. That's just not who I am. I like to play golf, but not something I do regularly. I have tried to pick up guitar. I'm pretty awful at it. Most of the guys I go to these concerts with, they all are awesome guitarists. They can shred the guitar. They can play every rock song you can imagine. And I really struggle with it. But I'll tell you, I always try to find small successes. And so while these guys were playing, you know, Stairway to Heaven, or, you know, you name it, Highway to Hell, beautifully, right? I had to find something I could play the entire song. And so the first song I finally was able to learn, maybe most of you won't even know what this is, it was the theme song from All in the Family. So I have Angus Young from 2000, a beautiful guitar my wife bought me, and I'm playing All in the Family on electric guitar. But I have worked my way up recently to play MASH. I can play the MASH theme song. But you know, it's these small victories, you know, when you can't have big successes, start with some small ones, right? I have picked up skiing. I would say probably not the smartest thing to do when you're 50 plus, but if you know me, I am absolutely terrified of heights. Okay, and one of the things of the real thing for me to go skiing is to get over that fear of getting on a gondola, right? Getting on top of a hill, even the bunny slope, and looking down that hill and conquering that fear. So my group of friends have been great, taking me on some ski trips and really exposing me to this new sport. So that's been a lot of fun. And so that's a little bit about who I am, what I do. I don't just sell plates all the time. That would get, you know, not too much fun. So let's talk about my journey from school. When I was doing this, you know, I'm continuously learning, but what I wanted to do is maybe highlight 1 or 2 things I learned along each step of the way. You know, I've had a lot of successes and a lot of failures. You know, I feel very fortunate that most of the companies I've worked for have allowed me to fail. You know, because if you're in a position where you are always fearful of, you know, if I do something wrong, I'm going to lose my job, that's not a great environment to be in. I've been in places that have allowed me to try new things, to think outside the box. In my current company, when I took it over, we were very tiny, $3.6 million in revenue, and we had 6 employees. I had 0 money for marketing. I had 1 salesperson to cover this entire country. And we had to get very creative. We had to try things. We had to experiment. And yes, sometimes they were very successful, and sometimes they failed miserably. But I have to say, I never, ever felt that my job was in jeopardy. And so I give a lot of credit to the people that I work for to allow me to be in that type of environment, to have failures and to continue on. So, let's go back to high school days. You know, I spent some time living with my grandparents, and so they had sort of got me a job working at a seafood restaurant. And I really loved it. I still remember this. It's like summer of 1984, and I'm making like $10 an hour, bussing tables. This was so much money back then. I felt, wow, I really love this. I really enjoyed it. And so when I moved back to San Antonio to live with my parents, I had a job at Taco Bell. which I enjoyed, but I never could get real shifts. I was getting 2 hours here and 2 hours there, and it just wasn't enough. So I found another seafood restaurant to go work for, and it's called the Pelican's Wharf. And this was probably the first time in my life, you know, I told you I moved a lot. The first time in my life, like I felt like I was part of something. You know, the crew, we worked hard. After work, we played hard, you know, and we repeated this, right? And it was really the first time I really felt like something that I could be part of. And, you know, it was clear that I wasn't on the path to become a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant or an architect. That just wasn't the trajectory I was on. But my father recognized that I really enjoyed working in restaurants specifically. And so he made the recommendation that maybe if I want to go to college to look at a degree in hotel restaurant management. Sure, why not? You know, I'll do that, Dad. So he took me up to a school, North Texas, University of North Texas. They had a program, and I was fine. Sure, I'll go here. And my dad, being the wise guy that it was, said, you know, maybe we should look at more than one school, Jeff. And so he recommended we go visit the University of Houston, which I knew nothing about. But I can tell you, the first step I made into this building at the Hilton College, I knew this was the place for me. You know, I stepped in and I saw kids in tuxedos, and it was like, wow, I want to do that. And they talked about all the experiences and things we were going to be exposed to. And guys, when you're you know, highest level of dining is Red Lobster, and you hear about what you can experience here at the Hilton College, I was very excited about this. And so I immediately that day said, this is where I'm going, the Hilton College. And so I had a great experience here. I worked, starting my sophomore year, because I was financially independent, I worked 30 plus hours a week. I always worked hard to get scholarships. Because of those scholarships, I always had to have at least 15 hours. But even though I had this much, I was still very involved in a fraternity. I had no idea I was going to join a fraternity. In fact, I had told people there's no way I'm joining a fraternity. But I happened to go to a party for some free beer. And they invited me to come back and play basketball. And there was not a lot of talk about joining a fraternity, but just come hang out with us. And I really felt a lot of friendship with these guys, and so I decided to join. And one of my brothers is here, Jason, so thank you for being here. But I was in the fraternity. I also was very active, particularly my freshman and sophomore year in intramurals, right? So I was very actively doing that. And I also joined a group called Par Excellence, and I see a couple of the past member of Par Excellence, which was part of the Hilton College, and I did that the entire time I was eligible to do so. So I was very active in school, and it was really great. And so I really feel this is my first real home. When people ask where I'm from, I didn't go to high school here, I didn't go to school here, but Houston is home for me. And it's because I really had my first foundation built here. But I would encourage you to be involved. This is the one time in your life where you can burn both ends of the candle and really get the max experience out of your time here. You know, go to the football games, go to the basketball games, go to baseball and softball, all the sports they have to offer. Take in the college experience. You know, I've interviewed hundreds and hundreds of kids that are just out of school over my career, and nothing sends a red flag up to me more than when they say, I was focused solely on my grades, right? I'm much more interested when kids tell me all the other stuff they did. And I'm not saying grades aren't important, so I don't want the faculty upset with me. Grades are very important, but they're just one part of the equation, right? Go get involved in some group. It doesn't have to be a fraternity or a sorority. Go get involved in all the other groups that are part of the Hilton College or the university, and try to get, you don't always have to be a leader, you can be. I was never a leader in Par X, but I was always very active in Par X, right? But go get involved. I think this is really critical and will make you much more attractive as a candidate, right? But you'll also have a much better experience from college. You know, you'll really treasure your time here more. So I really encourage that. Now, I told you I was going to talk about lessons for each stop. And the one lesson I picked up at the University of Houston I'd like to talk about, I had a lecturer, his name was Lonnie Simmons. Did anybody from my day have Lonnie Simmons? Okay. I probably met Lonnie 10 times my entire life. Okay? I'm still talking about Lonnie today. So he was a very impactful person. Lonnie lived in San Antonio. He was lecturing for club management. And at the time I had him, he was fighting cancer. He was just a really great guy. And you know, sometimes Lonnie couldn't make the drive, and sometimes maybe I didn't show up to school. So I probably met him 8 to 10 times total in my life. But one thing is, Lonnie always had things, he was teaching more than just club management. He was teaching things about successful, you know, having a successful life. And he would always have us write little things on our papers. We had to, you know, if it was homework, if it was a test, if it was an assignment, whatever, we had to put these little inspirational sayings on our papers. And there was, you know, of all the ones we had to write, there's one I remembered. And this is what Lonnie Simmons had us, and it is your attitude, not your aptitude, that determines your altitude. I really believe this, because I tell you, I've always been a hard worker, and most of the time I have a good attitude. I've been able to find success, even with my shortcomings, right? It will determine where you go in life. You cannot have all the positive skills that you have and have a bad attitude and be successful. It's just not possible. And so this is something I actually have this saying framed in my office. And sometimes, yes, I have to remind myself to fix my attitude, right? Because we are in control of our attitude. And, you know, sometimes if I'm coaching up one of my team members, you know, I understand people have bad days. I understand bad things happen. I understand sometimes customers are rude. I understand sometimes your team loses, whatever it is. But I try to say, listen, we've got to have at least 4 out of 5 days be good days, right? It's okay to have a bad day once in a while, but it can't be a chronic problem, right? We have to choose to have a good attitude. So it's funny, as I was preparing this about a month ago, I saw on social media, I saw this text. This is our great coach, Kelvin Sampson. When you think about the challenge the team faced back in December, losing 2 of its star players, they could have packed it up and mailed it in. Right? They talk about the culture of the team. But what the coach says is you can control your attitude and you control your effort. Right? These are the 2 things that I believe propelled my career, and I think that you can use to help propel your career. Right? So, before I get into my career steps, I just want to give you, oh, this is not what I wanted. Here you go. Before I get into, I just want to talk about the side of the industry I'm in, just so you understand it. But I work for a manufacturer. You can see Boucher Hep, that's my company, but I throw a couple other companies up there. You can also see associations that support each part of the channel. Now, sometimes manufacturers don't actually manufacture anything. It's just sort of the jargon or the language in our industry. Maybe they source from other people, but we call them manufacturers. And we all work with independent representatives. Okay, so these are independent companies that maybe work for 10, 20, 30, maybe 40 other companies that they sell their goods into a defined territory. And then we work with dealers and distributors that actually buy our products and resell it. And they, of course, sell to operators. And so I just want you to understand sort of where I am. If you're thinking about working in a restaurant, you're here, and I'm the guy that makes the plates and the china and the glassware for you guys. But you could make fryers or other types of equipment as well. So this is the channel. So in college, I was so busy. I talked about all the activities, but I really wasn't thinking about what my next steps were when I graduated. And I really started the process pretty late. And by the time I I was interviewing. There was probably 3 or 4 companies left that were interviewing people. But, you know, being raised by a military guy, you know that, well, very often they tend to be a little bit risk averse. You know, military guys don't tend to take big chances, and that's just part of the training. So I took a job with a company called Pizza Hut. At the time they were with Pepsi, and of all the jobs that I was offered, that was the one that was probably the least risky. You know, I was offered to run food service at a prison in Mississippi. Did not really excite me. I was offered an opportunity with Ralph and Cuckoo's, which I don't know if they're even still around. But the guy pulled a gun out in the interview and put it on the table. And I didn't really feel comfortable with that. So I went to go work for Pizza Hut, and I lasted 1 year to the day. I had a boss there, his name was John Maloney. I worked for about 4 or 5 weeks as an assistant, and that store needed a new manager, so guess who they promoted? The new guy. I got a store. I moved from the Humble store, and I took over one on Westmount, Houston, up there, 249. The street's got a million names, so I don't know what it's called today. Tomball Parkway, whatever. So I took over a store there, and you know, the lesson I learned, John one time sat me down, he said, Jeff, if you're ever working more than 50 hours a week, you're doing something wrong. Now, if you know about our industry, particularly back in the early 90s, as a general manager of a restaurant, you were probably working 60, maybe 70 hours a week. And here my boss is saying, you should be doing 50. He said, you know, Pizza Hut's developed a system. If you execute the system, you'll be successful. And if you're working more than that, you probably have the wrong people doing the wrong job. You're probably not following the right processes. You know, you probably are not delegating. And so I really took it to heart. I wanted to do them a little better though. And I never worked more than 45 hours a week. Right? The other managers always ask me, how do you do this, Jeff? How do you get away with this? Well, I always made my number. I always made top line sales and I always made profit, right? But I was going to do what my boss said, and that was to make sure that I was putting the right people in the right seats. And I still follow that to this day. You know, when you're working somewhere, and oops, I forgot to talk about CFSP. Sorry about that, but they mentioned that earlier. When I'm working somewhere and you can sense frustration in an organization, if you can sense that things aren't getting done, you may say, I've got great people, but sometimes it's great to step back and say, do I have the right people doing the right jobs? Do I have them assigned to the right task? You know, are there processes we could improve? Do you have accounting running reports nobody ever even looks at? Right? And so this was something I learned, and putting it in today's words, so this is going back to the early 90s, in today's words, you know, let's not worry about how much we work. Let's be more focused on results. And so this is a lot of times my mantra. I don't like it when my team says they've had to work a lot. I know a lot of times people that work a lot think their bosses are like back in the back saying, yes, I got them to work a lot. For me, that's a failure. It happens. You may have a big project and you have to work at night or a weekend. You may have end of year, you know, financials that have to get closed and you have to work a little more. I'm not talking about that stuff. I'm talking about where you chronically have to work a lot. As a leader, it's my job to step back and say, how can I make things better? How can I get better efficiencies? You know, right now in our company, we're trying to implement digital document management. Because I saw stress on our accounting team, I saw stress in the customer service department, and when I just walked around, I saw that we were spending anywhere from 12 to 20 hours a week filing papers. This is terrible. And so we invested in new software, and the goal was not so I could get rid of people. The goal was so those people could be more focused on actually providing customer service and developing reports that actually provide value to us from the accounting department, right? So my big mantra to this day, something I learned way back at Pizza Hut, You know, let's focus on results and not how much you work. So, the one thing I did not like about Pizza Hut, and this is just something I had to learn about myself, is I did not like being contained by those four walls, right? When you work in those operations. And some people like that, but that's just not me. And I had two guys, when I was in college, I did an internship at Gerber's Restaurant Supply. They used to have a building right off the campus. I did an internship. One of my fraternity brothers worked there, Bill Flannery. He was full-time. And there was another gentleman by the name of Alan Chow. He worked there. And the three of us became, you know, running buddies and hung out quite a bit. Well, they encouraged me to look at a new opportunity. They were now working at a company called Edward Don. And Edward Don is a dealer. They sell restaurant equipment and supplies. They sell basically everything but the food to restaurants. And so I went on 6 interviews and I finally landed the job. And just like we have Pizza Hut, new guy, worst store, new guy at Edward Don, worst territory. There was really, you know, the average territory back then did about $800,000 to $900,000, and this territory did $250,000 before. So it was a really bad territory. It was basically the Astrodome area down 45 to Galveston, and I also had all the little cities down 288. This is what I had. And so the year before me, it was $250,000. In my first year, I did $250,000. Zero growth. I'm sitting there as probably a 22, 23-year-old. Remember, I said I was super shy, and here I'm trying to sell, really questioning my decisions. And, you know, the same year I'm doing $250,000, my buddy Bill was Salesman of the Year for the company. You can imagine how that affected my ego, right? But rather than feeling defeated, I stepped back and I said, what's Bill doing to be so successful? And the one thing I picked up on was he was calling on multi-units. So rather than calling on one-offs, where you go sell it and then you got to go reinvent the wheel every time you sell, he was going to multi-unit operators and selling, and then it was multiplied out to many stores. So I made a list of every multi-unit operator in my territory. They could have 3 stores. I didn't care. They were going to be a multi-unit in my book, right? And so I made this list, and there's 13 of them. And I worked at it and worked at it hard, and I had success. I had success with 2 of them. 2 out of 13. Now, the first one I had success with was a company called Antipastos. I don't think they're around anymore, but they grew to about 4 locations at one point, and that was my first success. It's sort of like that example I gave you of the All in the Family theme song, a small success. Well, I had my first small success. It probably gave me a little bit of confidence, and I continued to pursue the other 12 multi-units. Well, the other one that I had some success, you probably have heard of this, is Landry's. Now, at the time, Landry's had about 8 or 9 locations, and I was just calling on one of them, which was Kima, because that was the only one that was in my territory. And I called on them for 6 months and got absolutely 0 sales. Every week, every Wednesday, 10 a.m., I was there. And I couldn't even get them to fill out a credit application. So I lived by the Galleria, and you know, I used to drive down to Clear Lake and Kima and Galveston. And so I was halfway there one Wednesday on my way to my 10 a.m. appointment, and it was almost Christmas time, and I said, you know what? I'm not going. I'm going to go buy Christmas gifts. And that's what I did. And about 5 o'clock that afternoon, my boss called and said, Jeff, where are you? Barry called and said you were supposed to be there at 10 a.m. and you didn't show up. And I was like, this guy's never even filled out a credit app, and now he's calling my boss on me. Holy Moses. So I called Barry, and I went back down the next day on a Thursday, which was usually my Astrodome day. But I went down there, and I got a small order. And my friends at Cisco, my friendly competitors at Cisco, got the bulk of the business, but I was getting nice little orders every week. And Landry's went into growth mode at this point, and they opened they were opening a store in Pensacola, and my friends at Cisco, of course, got the order. And there's one item they couldn't provide, and that was the little celery dish. The celery dish was a little metal tray. I think to this day they still serve their bread in the celery tray. You know, it's got the little white napkin folded on it. I have one of these at home. It's like a trophy for me. But But the corporate office called Kima Restaurant, called Barry the GM, because at the time it was their highest volume store, and said, hey, is there anybody besides Cisco that you buy from? And they said, well, there's this young kid from this company called Edward Don, maybe you can talk to him. Well, my team at Edward Don found this celery dish. We were able to airship it in and get that store open. And if you know anything about Tillman, you're not going to be a day late, right? You're not going to keep a restaurant from opening. It's just not going to happen. So the next store was going to be the Biloxi store. And they approached me and said, because I provided this celery dish, do you want to do this opening package? Heck yes, I do. Please. And I proceeded to open about 100 restaurants with them. A lot of them were Joe's Crab Shacks, you know, a couple Willie G's here and there. But this was really a monumental period in my career. I went from the struggling sales guy to now, the next 2 years, I was Salesman of the Year, right? So my buddy, I one-upped him. Right? So that persistence really paid off. Now, this is going back to the late 90s. Now, you guys, students, may find this hard to believe, but we never used computers in college. Okay? We were doing all this business with no computers back in the office, but as a salesperson, I didn't have access to a computer. And I'll admit I was a little bit naive, but I just figured I'm having all this success, somebody will want me. I wasn't getting any experience managing people, so no computer access, no people skill or people management. I made the decision just to quit because I didn't want to become a 40 or 50-year-old guy and not have these skills. And if there's one thing that's really hard to get on your resume, it's managing people. Okay? Because a new company doesn't want to hire you unless you've managed people before. Right? It's the old catch-22. The best chance to get the opportunity to manage people is within an organization and they promote you up. I wasn't getting that opportunity. So I moved on, thinking I was just going to land on my feet. And I went unemployed for 3 or 4 months. Now, thankfully, I was still living like I was making no money. I still drove the same beat-up pickup truck and lived in the same tiny apartment. So I could swing this. But I didn't really have a job lined up. And so during this process, I did find a job, and I was about to take this job, but one of my friends, this lady I had worked with, her name was Ann Forbes. She went out of her way to make a interview for me with Panasonic. I had zero interest. I was already lined up to take another job. One thing about me is if I want a job, if I know what I'm talking about, if I'm passionate about it, I'm going to give you the best interview of your life, right? If I don't, you're going to get probably the worst interview you've ever seen. There's no in-between with me. I'm all in or nothing. I didn't want this job, but I felt obligated because she went out of her way to get this interview, and I went through the motions, and I gave this guy the worst interview he probably ever received. Okay? But during the interview, I just saw this guy's mind at work, and I was like, I can learn a lot from this guy. He was really just such a dynamic guy. And I called him up after the interview, and I said, Paul, I really bombed that. It was terrible. He goes, you sure did. You really, that was a pretty bad interview. And so we talked for a little bit, and I convinced him how much I wanted this job. And he actually flew back to Houston about 3 weeks later. Unbelievable. And he actually, during the second interview, offered me the job on the spot. So I really appreciate that about Paul. This, by the way, is a picture about a month ago. Paul suddenly moved to Scottsdale, Arizona. He had retired to Florida. He wanted to be closer to his kids. And I learned at this dinner, this is about a month ago, he's got the early onset of dementia. Still remembered me. We shared a lot of great stories. But I was really appreciative that I was able to see him where I could properly thank him. You know, this is many, many years, 20 plus years ago, and also to tell him I love him. You know, he is next to Landry's. He's that second pillar in my career. You know, because if he did not take that chance on me when I had given him plenty of reason not to, I probably wouldn't be here. And so that was pretty awesome. Now, I'd been there about 4 or 5 years, and I'd been offered to lead, yes, this is true, I've been offered to lead the electronic toilet division. And the other opportunity I turned down, they had this new technology called touchscreen. And Panasonic's vision for touchscreen was for automotive stores, you were going to be able to go in and say, I have a Ford, I have a Taurus, and it's a 2001. And it was going to tell you which battery you needed or which windshield wipers you needed. This was their entire vision for touchscreen. And I had so many other ideas, and they just didn't want to hear about it. So my boss said, Jeff, there's not going to be more opportunities for you here. You know, if you don't want to sell electric toilet seats or touchscreens, you're really a hospitality guy. We're a $15 million division in a $70 billion company. There's not going to be a lot of hospitality opportunities here. So he actually encouraged me to look for other opportunities. And that's something I really learned from Paul, something I took from Paul, was you can't hold people back, right? And so to this day, when people want to leave the company, if I can't provide them the opportunity and it's the right thing for them, I will never, ever try to convince them to stay. And I will tell you, I've taken a lot of people back. I have several people on my staff that have left, probably for the right reasons, maybe to get other types of experiences we couldn't offer, but we'll take them back, but I will never try to keep them. So I did make my next move, Edlund. And Edlund's a fantastic company. If anybody's worked in a kitchen, I promise you've touched an Edlund product. You know, they are the old #1 can opener. And at one point we had like 90% market share. You've touched one, I promise. You've touched an Edlund product. But they were going to create this new job called National Accounts. And then they decided not to. Now I had the good fortune that I was at a conference and assigned to the same dinner table as the VP of Sales. And I made a point at every event to go introduce myself, and we became very friendly. And when they did release the budget to hire this newly created role of National Accounts, guess who got the job? I did. I developed a relationship. And if you can see a common theme in my career, you know, my two buddies from Gerber's got me the job at Edward Don. You know, the lady I knew got me the job at Panasonic. And now, through the relationship I developed with the VP of Sales, I've gotten this job here. And I will say, the easiest jobs to get are when you are referred or you know somebody. You don't have to go through those interviews where they say, you know, where do you want to be in 5 years? Those excruciating interviews, right? They become much more of a dialogue and just, you know, much easier. But I will also say, the best jobs I've had in my career were the jobs where somebody referred me or I knew somebody there. Because if somebody refers to you, they probably already know that it's going to be a good fit for you. If you're doing like a cold call, you know, just finding jobs randomly, and you're gambling. You don't know if it's going to be the right fit or not. So this is something I learned is really to build your network. This was part of Mike's theme. You've got some great alumni here. Many of them traveled to be here. They obviously care. They're obviously willing to help. Don't be upset if they can't help you. You know, maybe they don't have the right connection for you, but they'll probably find a different alumni that has the right connection or has the time to help you. But take advantage of that and build your network for sure. So I just want to reiterate your theme from last talk. My next move, I was very happy at Edlund. I was in the process of moving to Burlington, Vermont. Would have loved it. When I was approached by this company, Electrolux Professional, the only reason I was interested, it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to bring this major brand to the North American market. And so I took the job. I was able to spend about 3 months in Italy and then spend another 3 or 4 months here before we launched it. Overall, a very good experience. But I only lasted about 2.5 years there. And what I learned at Electrolux, you know, there's 2 different types of environments in a company. You can be very corporate-like, or you can be very entrepreneurial. And I'm not here to say that one is better than the other, because, you know, some people are much more comfortable in corporate environments and some like the entrepreneurial environment. So I'm not here to say one's right. What I learned here is I do prefer an entrepreneurial environment. That's just my choice. right? In a corporate environment, much more structure, right? You tend to be much more specialized. So if you're a marketing person, you might be a social media specialist. You might be trade show specialist. You might be print material specialist. When you're in an entrepreneurial environment, you're pretty much everything. And you know, corporate world, you probably know what you're going to do today, tomorrow, a year from now, 5 years from now. And some people really like that assuredness and the transparency. In an entrepreneurial world, you may show up today thinking you're going to do job A and you then spend the whole day doing job B, right? And when people ask me what opportunities there are in a year, I have no idea. Because opportunities are only presented with growth, right? Now I can say on a positive level, you know, I had a lady that was newly divorced, first time back in the workforce in 20 years in customer service, and she wanted to get into sales. And I had 0 salespeople at the time. This was a very nerve-wracking decision, but I put her into sales, and she's now our executive VP of sales. She's a rock star, right? I could have told her back then that she would become the executive VP of sales. I had no possibility to imagine this. You know, another lady in our organization, she was an immigrant from Ethiopia. We were so small that she spent half the day in customer service and the other half the day in accounting. She's now our VP of operations. Another rock star. She's just amazing, right? And I have many, many other stories like this. And so I really like that environment. That's what I learned. And I didn't have a bad experience in Electrolux. I just knew it wasn't the right fit for me personally. So that takes us to my next stop. And I just want to give you an impression of what I do. You know, we sell China glass silverware, banqueting items, buffet furniture to restaurants. And a lot of people say, well, you only sell to people like Four Seasons. That's not the case. That's not who my customer is. I do sell Four Seasons, don't worry. But I don't like to phrase it that way because it sounds like we're only accessible to elevated dining. That's not the case. Here's some more impressions of what we do, right? So I was doing a presentation, and I'll wrap it up. I know you're, I don't know how long. That 30 seconds, I'm killing it now. But I had to do this presentation to about 50 of our sales reps, and I wanted to talk to them about all the segments we were involved with, and really who is the customer for our products. And I made a list of about 40 different segments we sell into: restaurants, hotels, casinos, private clubs, senior living, you name it. That's a mouthful, and it's a terrible elevator speech, right? So I really had to think about what is it that we do? Who is our customer? I don't want to be pigeonholed that I can only sell to Four Seasons and private country clubs. And so I had to define who our customer was easily. And, you know, I came up with a one-sentence line of who our client is, and that is that our clients strive to give their guests exceptional experiences. Okay? That's who we are. Because every single thing I sell, there's a less expensive alternative on the marketplace. There's plenty of competition. It's endless. But my customers do not cut corners. Okay? When you bring a plate out, a plate of food, they want that to make a wow impression on the guest. They want it to be Instagrammable. That's critical nowadays, right? They want the cutlery to be well balanced, not too heavy, not too light, easy to use. They want that glass to add to the wine drinking experience with a nice sheer rim. These are the little details, and you know, so I know that people that buy my type of products, they're also not cutting corners on food, they're not cutting corners on training their team, on the decor of the restaurant, etc. So this is who our customer is, and this is what we do. We try to create that wow moment for the guest and make that special experience. So the one lesson, and then I'll be done. The one lesson that I'd like to talk about at Voucher, when I first started, we were doing about $300,000 a year with this company called Edward Don, the same company I'd worked for. Largest at the time, largest dealer in equipment and supplies at the time. And I flew up and met a gentleman by the name of John Mudra, and somehow I convinced him to take a much bigger player, big brand name that you all would know, out of the preferred dealer program and preferred vendor program and put us in as a preferred vendor. And then 6 months pass and we're not having any success. So I print out all the stats, I have the contract, I have all these arguments I was going to make, and I flew up to Chicago and I got one sentence out to John Mudra basically saying, why are we not having success? Why aren't you guys, this program we put in place? And before I could go on, he said, Jeff, what are you doing to make this program successful? It hit me like a ton of bricks. And you know what? He's right. And so the lesson I learned here, oh, by the way, here's a couple of our local references here in Houston only, as well as some of our hotels and clubs and senior living. But this is something, the lesson I learned, which is if you ever make an agreement, it's your job to make it successful. This applies to business. This applies to your significant other. Okay, this applies for your friends. You know, if you make a dinner reservation with one of your friends, you can't just count on him choosing the right Landry's to show up to. You know, it's just as much your responsibility to make sure you're both on the same page. And when you make an agreement, that's not where you're handing off your responsibility to someone else. It's your responsibility to make that agreement successful. And so I use this every day in our business. Whenever we're having some frustrations or failures, I always like to step back and say, what are we doing to contribute to this? You know, sometimes it's really easy to point at your competitor and say, oh, darn them, or the customer, you know, they're not doing something right. And I promise you, in most cases, you're contributing to that failure at some point. So it's your job to really help make sure every agreement in all aspects of your life are successful. Now, I want to say thanks again. But I do have one thing. I've been talking business, school, etc. I'm going to put my dad hat on now, okay, as a father. And the one thing that I really want to encourage the young people here is to save, okay? And the reason I say that is because I see a lot of kids that we hire through my career that don't take advantage of things like the 401k program. Now, this is money you have earned, and if you don't take it, guess who gets to keep it? The company does, right? Now, the reason I'm about this is because the company that does our 401k now actually shows the contribution that I make to my 401k and the contribution that my company makes to my 401k. It's the first time I've ever received this report, and this was about a month ago. And it was remarkable to me how much the company's contribution contributed to my 401k, okay? So I would strongly suggest, even if you only put the minimum, to take all of that contribution from the company to do so, because you've earned it, right? And I promise you, it's a lot less painful to save a little bit today in your 20s than it is to save a lot in your 50s and 60s, right? So as a father, I'm going to try to ask you, save as much as you can as early as you can, right? So, having said that, I ran over a little bit of time, but I just want to say thank you again, and it's been a real honor.
Well, that was terrific. Another round of applause. That was just outstanding. So, for the Q&A action here, I'm sure somebody's got a question out here. Who's got a question? Come on, somebody, or on the chat. See if we can get somebody up here.
Right here.
Oh, yes, Heaney. Yes, sir.
Great speech. Thank you so much for sharing all your life lessons with us. My question while reading your profile. You've given us such great, valuable lessons across your journey. But how about the last couple of years? I mean, you started 4 brands during COVID, right? So if it says something about that time of your life that, like you, many of us, or will have not seen or will never see in our lives, hopefully, what are your lessons from that period of time as an entrepreneur, as a businessman, as a father?
Yeah, nice question. Thank you for asking that. I would say, I had a former boss. He was the CEO of the parent company I work for now. And the one thing he said about me all the time was, he's a German guy. I work for a German company. you know, first off, most Americans tend to be a little bit more optimistic than the Germans are with their planning and projections. But he always said, Jeff, every time I deliver bad news to you, you always find an opportunity. And I think that's just my mentality. And so when COVID hit, we had grown fivefold in the last 7 years, right? But quite honestly, we were on such a rapid rate that we weren't really paying attention to our structure of our company and our organization. And so we grew from here to here, but we probably weren't in a position to grow from here to here. And on a positive side, what COVID afforded me was a chance to step back. I had a lot more extra time on my hands. I wasn't traveling. And really to say, do I still have the right people in the right jobs? Do I need to add people in certain areas? And that's one of the reasons we very quickly added new brands, because we analyzed how do we want to take that next step and what's missing from our portfolio. And then we went and found the solutions to fill those portfolios. So for the last few years, I would say the last 2 years, that's really what I've been occupied on the business side to address and take an opportunity. And I think we came out of COVID actually better than we went in, if that makes sense.
Another question, anybody? Yes, sir.
So my question was to do with, because you talked about goal setting and sort of you're still growing. So what habits have helped you to set those goals and achieve them?
Habits, I would say the easiest thing is I don't let email dictate my day. Okay, if that makes sense. I talked earlier about being results driven, and every single day I try to say, what is the one big thing I want to accomplish? And then all of the other things like email, etc., work around that. Okay, and I try to get that one big thing done before I try to attack those other things. That's been a big thing for me because I do get more accomplished. And basically what happens if a lot of people wake up, the first thing they do is read all their emails, and then that dictates what they do for the day. And what ends up happening is other people are deciding what you're doing, right? I'm oversimplifying things, trust me, the world's not that easy. But that's what I try to do every day. And if I can have 3 or 4 really productive days, that's really good for me. One other small thing I do is I try not to schedule any meetings on Friday. Okay, because especially during COVID, we were meeting to death. And I always wanted to have one day where I could really solely be focused on big, big projects. So there's a couple things I've done.
Another question?
Thank you again. That was a wonderful introduction. And in the beginning, how you were talking about growth as well. I just have a question for you. How do you know when you just stop growing and you move to so many different properties? How do you know when to leave?
The one thing, you know, it's not uncommon for people to change jobs a lot nowadays. Every step I took, though, it was for growth. It was never like a lateral move. So, you know, at some point, I think it's justifiable to make a move if you see an opportunity to grow and stretch, learn new things. So, I don't think there's a hard-cut rule, but for me, it was always, how do I learn more? How do I grow more? You know, you don't want to become stagnant. And so that's what led me to my decisions to make moves. I don't know if that fully answered your question, but yeah, that went into my thought process. So no lateral moves. You know, let's take the steps that you have opportunities to learn and grow. And sometimes, yes, I did take steps back in pay, as I talked about, but they were the right steps for me as part of my development.
Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you for being here. So how did you balance your family life with your work life?
Well, as I told you earlier, I don't work that much. No, I tell you, I have a very understanding wife. You know, we dated long distance, and I've always traveled a lot, so we've never been, until COVID, together 7 days a week. But we survived, and we actually thrived. You know, I make a special point to you know, for me, it's very critical for me to be at my kids' sporting events, to you know, have downtime with them. So you just have to make it part of your routine, and you know, you have to be committed to it. And but fortunately, you know, my wife has done a great job as well. She's really done a great job raising the kids and being there. She did stay home, and so we were very fortunate to do that. But, you know, I wouldn't say I always was balanced, but definitely I've been much better in the last 5 or 6 years to be there and be present, you know, not be on my phone or computer, and especially on things like vacations. You know, I used to work half my vacations. Now I just don't want to do that. You know, I want to be there. So you got to make the choice, right?
We have time for one more question. There you go. Here you go. Bring this up here.
So you said that you moved to several different companies, but what company was there that you felt like, do I really need to move, or I can still do a little bit more? And if you did move, what was the factor that made you like, I have to let go now?
I could have done more probably at Edwin, because like I said, I was in the process of moving there from Houston up to Burlington, Vermont. But the only reason I left was the very unique opportunity to be part of this new Electrolux launch. So I mean, there was still a lot more to be accomplished there. So that was just a unique opportunity. You know, it probably will. I'll never have something like that present itself again, where you could be part of something so big. There was one other question.
Do we have one more over here? We got time for one more. All right, we'll do it. I'm going to give you the microphone just so the people on the Zoom can hear.
So, oh wow. So you talked about the 2 basic requirements to be in the Eric's Club. Is there anything else that is required besides being a CEO and minimum 2 years?
I'm going to let you take that one.
Watch this dance.
Go for it.
Okay, so the question is, what does it take besides 20 years out of college to be here? I think the answer will be in about 12 minutes, and let me explain why. If you will take the opportunity, there's 25 of us here out of 62 living Eric's Club members, which is a big number participation. If you'll come to the meet and greet, which this is a great segue, Dr. Back, you'll find a common theme of all 25 of us. One, I think you'll find a heart of a leader. Every person in here is a leader. They've developed those skills in those 20 years. Thank you, Dr. Back. They've developed those skills in the 20 plus years they've been out of University of Houston. So I think one, they've been in a leadership role in an organization, and they've proven success. If you think about what Jeff has done, there's a successful career here. Everybody here has success in their career. I think you also find everybody here has had a failure. Jeff alluded to that. I've had a failure. We've all had failures. You cannot honestly believe that you're going to never not fail. So that's the other answer, but again, the invitation, now 12 minutes. So I would like to thank the students for being here, but before I finish, there's 3 or 4 women that are in here that make this happen. First of all, Debbie Mowers in the back, and Debbie, thank you for Sophie, there's Sophie Mulvane right there. Our intern, Abby Markowitz. And I don't see the wonderful Wendy Evans. I think Wendy's at her desk, probably. Wendy's at her desk. And these women make Eric's Club thrive with our presentations, and our IT folks in the back. Gentlemen, thank you very much for all your work. Simone, thank you for letting us borrow your classroom today. And of course, always to the leadership of Dean Reynolds and the college. This is a legacy college, folks. We are a legacy. So thank you. Now, students, before I turn this over to Dr. Back, you will see how wonderful Eric's Club is, because I'm going to ask every Eric's Club member to come up here. I'll ask Jeremy if you'll grab the chair. We're going to go over here because I think it's better for pictures against that wall. Debbie, isn't that right? Yep, we'll go over here. You grab the chair. Eric's Club members, we're going to present Jeff Heaney with his Eric's Club Distinguished Lecture Series chair. So if the students will just indulge us a second before I turn it over to Dr. Back, that would be great. This is a great part of our protocol and our traditions of Eric's Club, so thank you.
I'll let Debbie direct.
Okay.
While they are staging, let's give them a big round of applause one more time. Thank you so much. For the great presentation by Mr. Jeff Heaney, as well as generous support by all Eric's Club members who are all here to meet with you. In terms of a meeting with you, we have a special session at 11:30 in the Waldorf area, Waldorf Forum, so that you can